everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again for another weekly update on news and information about DCS World. I'm your host, of course, Prickly Hedgehog, and as always, I do hope this video finds you well wherever you're tuning in from. Let's unpack this newsletter because the changelog, like I said, is pretty large. We're going to come back to that, and we've also got the channel map, which has been accompanied with this release of the Mosquito. Now, I should mention here, we'll start with the channel map. A couple of cool things. One, it's 20% off, but only for this weekend. It's actually going to be shunted into stable release version of the game, which will be good for those people that are only able to play that version of the game and have been waiting for that map. They have done considerable adjustments. They've included numerous landmarks, 15 new unique landmarks, such as churches, cathedrals, graveyards, prisons, and bridges. And trains will also now travel over the entirety of the map. I believe there's also a train view now as a result of that. They've also added in the winter season for the map, which they are hoping will provide an even more immersive experience for the players that are able to enjoy it with those missions and campaigns that can be created around this map, which is going to be very, very exciting. And I can't wait again to try this period piece map with this particular aircraft. It's going to be fun. So again, 20% off on this map for this weekend, and after that, it's going to move to full price, and it will move into the stable version of the game. So sort of mixed news there, depending on what your perspective is. Don't miss out if you are kicking around picking that up, because I think it's going to be a great map to fly the Mosquito. So Eagle Dynamics is basically saying to us that they have been working very hard on this aircraft. We know that because, as I said, it was slated for release in Q1. Sadly, it wasn't up to scratch. It wasn't up to snuff and went back to the drawing board. But they have been working tirelessly on it, and they have promised, or hope, if you like, that this is going to be a highly realistic simulation that's going to satisfy fans of the plane. Not only is it going to be realistic from the point of view of the visuals, but also the performance and the sound, but especially apparently the flight model and also the systems modeling, as well as the new advanced damage model. What they're telling us here is that they're confident that this will set a new standard for the World War II aircraft in the game, and they're looking for feedback on that. And I remember they've done a lot of work over the last 12 months, particularly with the Jug, or the P-47 Thunderbolt, excuse me. And that was sort of the last World War II aircraft that we had that took advantage of some of the new things that they have been working on for the damage model and so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to see how this Mosquito compares to that. So let me know if you're able to fly both aircraft, what you think, and we'll see how things go. As for the Mosquito 2, they are now working on phase 2 of the development process, which features the following things: the operator's AI for multi-crew, the tire and shock absorber dynamics, operable drift recorder device, engine failures, fire extinguishers, rockets, armament, and more liveries. So lots to digest there, and on that basis, I'm going to take another swig of this very dark ale, which is a lot more potent than I initially anticipated. So I apologize if I'm a little slurry here. I should have had dinner first before I tried to do this. Anyway, all right. Now, of course, that's phase 2, but what do we get in phase 1 of this for early access? Well, we have the high-quality external 3D model, which we've kind of touched on, the 6 degree of freedom, fully clickable cockpit with latest visual effects, flight dynamics based on official reports, our own CFD research, and pilot feedback. I'm always very curious. I don't know if Eagle Dynamics would ever release a video that discusses that. I think it would be cool. I'd love to know what they do when they sit down with pilots and just talk to them about, hey, this is what we have. Do you want to play this game? And then the pilots say, no, you've got this right. That isn't right. It must be an interesting discussion. And there's not too many pilots flying this aircraft because there's not many aircraft around to fly. As I mentioned previously, quite a few of them are actually rebuilt in New Zealand, are restored down there. So really, we've only got a handful of flying examples. Kermit Weeks, I think, is one of those guys who's based in the States here, and he's been down in New Zealand and flown down there. And he's talked about the Mosquito a few times, gone through some walkarounds and stuff. Those are interesting videos. So yeah, I'm curious to know how that whole process works. Anyway, in addition to that expert or subject matter expert input, we also have full fuel system and optional external tanks, full electrical system, full hydraulic and pneumatic system, propeller feathering. We also have the transmitter and receiver radio units, and also support the new internal structure-based damage model, which I think is going to be interesting for this aircraft. Remember too, and I forgot about this, when you're comparing other aircraft, remember that there was an image a couple of weeks ago. Remember that the aircraft is made of wood. So this means the damage modeling is going to be a little bit different from our aluminium or aluminum aircraft. The damage model is going to behave in a different way. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that is modeled in the game. So lots to unpack there, like I said. Well, speaking of unpacking, of course, the changelog 2.7.6 is here as well. So they've done a major patch update to the core engine for 2.7. It's rocking along a little bit here. They've made changes to the F-18, Hornet, and of course the Viper, and some of the helicopters have also received new additions and bug fixes. Of course, big list of changes for the Hind and also for the Gazelle. Now that's an interesting mention because we really haven't heard a lot about Polychop and the Kiowa, which makes me think, is there a video from me due about the Kiowa being dead? I don't think it's dead. I'm just being facetious, but I'm getting worried that we haven't heard anything. And I know many of you have said similarly, hey, what's going on with that aircraft? Are we going to see it? Is there word? It's worrying. And we had the same thoughts, a couple of months ago with the Typhoon, because things have been quiet. Now, of course, we're a thirsty bunch, us some pilots, and we want to know what's going on at all times. And sometimes it's a little bit unreasonable. And there were some pretty terse comments, actually, from Big Newy and Nineline, where some people were just ripping into Eagle Dynamics about the early access status of the F-18. So, we have to be careful when we make assumptions. We're making assumptions sometimes based on a lack of knowledge and, a lack of understanding of the developmental processes. And while concerns and passion can sometimes spill over into, some sort of vitriolic abuse. So do be careful. I don't think it's helpful if you are just ripping into the developer, sometimes needlessly. Remember, too, that the amount of work that has gone into this game engine over the last 12 months, particularly, especially with 2.7, Edge, it's a fantastic atmospheric environment that we have right now with the clouds and the lighting, and that's still a work in progress. We're going to get more development on that, and it really is comparable to Microsoft Flight Simulator, even if it isn't the live weather. They've done a really nice job of it, and I think, as I said, with more development than in that area that we were expecting, the game just gets prettier and prettier, plus we have these neat modules. Remember, too, that we have some pretty good chops and support from people who are in the know. Obviously, Mover does videos every now and again. We've had feedback from Gonki about various aircraft in the game, particularly the F-18, of course, which both Mover and Gonki are qualified to fly, or have been qualified to fly, and flew them in their Navy careers. Plus, Casmo TV has been exceedingly helpful in videos and talking about how cool the AH-64D is going to be. When you have actual pilots telling you this looks good, it probably looks good. So it's easy to get into that trap of being dismissive because something is pissing you off, and then you lose all perspective as to what's actually pissing you off, and is that a realistic assessment of what's going on. And I think the developers are right. When you heedlessly attack developers and employees of Eagle Dynamics just because you're angry about something being in early access or what have you, there is a danger of really insulting people. And criticism is one thing, and reflective practice is a similar thing too. But vitriolic abuse and attacks on the studio in general probably aren't going to get you the results that you were hoping. If you want to vent, fine. But choose your words carefully, because I don't think that achieves anything. I think when you look at the game as it is right now, what you can do with it in multiplayer, what you can do with it in single player. Yes, there's some work to be done. We don't have the dynamic campaign We're still waiting on a passover with the Vulkan API to improve performance with multi-threading. Those are things that do need to be addressed. But there's also a lot of other work that is tremendous and can't be overlooked. And we have to give Eagle Dynamics, applause for the things that they're doing with regards to certain aircraft. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's turn to this changelog because it's extensive. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these line by line. It's just far too much. There are a couple of interesting points. I mentioned I think there is going to be a train view. I think that's F12 right now. So those new trains and things that are going to be part of the channel map will allow you to get some different perspective. And that is neat, especially if you I wonder if you should be able to pick that view as you're dive bombing onto the train, I would imagine. So I'm sure some creative people will be producing videos along those lines. We'll see what happens. So as I said, trains now appear in multiplayer games, and there is that Control F12 view, I think it is, not just F12, Control F12. They have done, this is an interesting one too. This is one of the this is the fourth item in. They've adjusted the simulation of post-penetration physics for delayed fuse bombs. That's a whole lot of work in itself, just a point of reference. They will now penetrate the ground and the objects, and they will decelerate accordingly. No an issue. There is low-impact velocity bombs with long fuse delays, which might hang in the air after penetrating an object. So there will be a bit of a visual oddity there, but nevertheless. We've already mentioned trains, and there is also, remember, there's some changes to what you can carry with the pylons now too. So in the mission editor, there will be limitations now on sort of the fantasy loadouts. And I know some players probably do this a little bit out of ignorance, but remember that fantasy loadouts basically are those ones that I'm referring to wherein you can do 6 different missions with the same plane, because I'm going to bring this, that, and the other, and some of those, and I'm going to whack those on as well, and that'll give me enough fuel to get there and back. Those aren't necessarily realistic loadouts, especially if you're in a war theater environment where supplies run low, or you're trying to do specific missions and you're not going to take all of those because you can't plan for everything, right? So then you have to focus on what your mission is and how you're going to achieve that, and what weapons or devices you need to do that. And I think that's a cool way of limiting, again, these fantasy loadouts, particularly for multiplayer or for people that are interested in more realism in their multiplayer theaters of war, which is cool. So that whole thing, it is a work in progress, and they are expecting feedback. So again, one of those things that you don't think the game is broken and lose your, throw your toys out of the cot. Give some constructive feedback about how that's working in game for you, because that's important for Eagle Dynamics, and certainly would be a help, I would imagine, for particularly that dynamic campaign, which we were all lusting after, especially solo players. Obviously, the Viper received numerous updates. Some of these are covered in Wags' video. We talked about these in the past, but the dual target track, which was fascinating, and also the MGRS option for steer points, 21 through 25, and the selection of manual auto steer point sequencing, that's been adjusted, and there's a video on that. So those are 2 things that have been covered by Wags already. They have included, apparently, the F-16C has been marked as unknown and Link 16 network. That's important to have been fixed. Obviously, these aircraft in the modern theater are able to talk to each other with AWACS to give you important information about friend and foe, positions, etc., etc. They have also added in some animations for the cockpit, and they've also fixed the synchronization of cockpit controls with the HOTAS dogfight, missile override switch, braking radar tracks, which is good. So lots and lots of things, including fixing the steering cue. I actually thought at one point when I was flying over Syria, I thought that was a deliberate thing. I thought it was maybe like I was getting some wind interference, and so the aircraft was being blown around, but apparently that was a little bit of a hiccup there. So again, lots of changes, too many to read through. Similarly, for the F-18 here, they've adjusted drag values of payloads, and they've also fixed some issues with the helmet-mounted queuing system alignment, which was introduced recently, which is a kind of a cool thing. So that's good as well. And I think I mentioned this, the AI pilot hand animations have been changed as well for both the F-18 and the F-16, which makes them a little bit more realistic, which is cool. And here's another thing too, they've refined the engine response, so I'm interested to know what that looks like too. Huge changelog for the Mi-24P High. No surprises there. Of course, that's in early access and has only been out for a couple of months. They've done some work on Petrovich in terms of target acquisition and being able to see things in different light conditions to summarize, and some animations and various other things. Again, too many things to go through line by line, but again, major patches there. Something interesting, the Tomcat, of course, which is always a fan favorite and one of my favorites. One thing they've added here is several engine failures for the mission editor. They include the following things: engine fire, engine seizure, engine turbine failure, engine oil leak, slow, moderate, or severe, engine compressor stall, engine pop stall, engine supersonic inlet buzz, engine HPT overspeed, engine AFTC PRI failed, engine AICS ramp fail from open, closed, and in position. Those are significant things for the I said it again, the F-18. F-14, obviously it doesn't have the inlets that the Legacy Hornet had. Airflow is controlled by those ramps. And lastly here on this, engine exhaust nozzle failure. So some interesting things to add there for the mission editor. They've also added a second readout row to the TID, including target aspect angle as per updated software tapes in the real F-14. So lots and lots of changes here for this aircraft, very, very interesting ones. And they've also adjusted all the mounting points to fit the DCS AIM-7s. And they've removed the heat blur copy of the AIM-7 to use standard DCS AIM-7. So a little bit of adjustments there. All very interesting. So yeah, cool stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Obviously, the Viggen received a few updates. The Razbam team have been working on the Harrier, of course, and also some adjustments to the MiG-19. I know poor Razbam, they sometimes get some real stick from the community, but they aren't, sitting idly by as we sometimes accuse them of. They are still working on the modules that they have. So cool stuff, and hopefully we'll see some more from them soon with regards to the F-15. And of course, I'm very much looking forward to that South Atlantic map, which, based on what we've seen so far, looks extremely promising. And Tactical Pascal did a nice video with them, I think earlier in the year, showcasing some of the work that they've done. It's a massive, massive map. So stay tuned. I can't wait for that map, because I think it's going to be fantastic to train and fly around. And it's going to be, like I said, the cold version of the Marianas. All right, this is a handy aircraft, the JF-17 by Decker Ironworks Simulations. They've been doing work on this. And this is a goodly, like I said, little aircraft, and you get to fly against it in the F-14 in the Marianas, for interest's sake. So, and you can try out some of Ward Carroll's interception, what would you call it, procedures that he mentioned in a video recently on how a team of F-14s would run their interception process, which was really cool. Now, again, I think I may have mentioned this. I can't remember. I've done so many takes of this because of the stupid failure of my microphone. But we haven't heard anything from Polychop with regards to the Kiowa, but Polychop have done some updates to the Gazelle for RWR symbology and VR compatibility for the helmet visor, etc., etc. So that means they're not, out of the works just yet, because we were worried. We haven't heard anything from the Kiowa. It doesn't mean anything, of course, for the Kiowa itself. And it almost makes me wonder, do I need to do a video on the Kiowa, similar to what I did with the Typhoon, when I speculated, is the Typhoon dead, which garnered some attention from all sorts of corners of the sim universe. And I'm wondering, similarly, what's going on with this Gazelle? And many of you have legitimately asked, too, as we haven't really heard a whole lot. So, so it's good to know that they're working on the Gazelle. That shows some promise. They've got some new pilot models as well, apparently, and improved downwash effects. And they've added in a Yugoslavian livery with, they've got some texture issues that they have with that. So anyway, Avio Jet, big changes there for the Avio Jet. That has is good news, because we also are waiting for the Mirage as well, the F1. So stay tuned for that. Let's have a look here. What have they done? I thought there was something in here that I can't find what I was looking for. They've updated the auto shutdown sequence, but there was something else that I was interested in, and I can't remember. Oh, they've added some stuff for the Oculus as well, which was really cool, but I thought there was something else I'd seen in here. But anyway, So that's good news. That aircraft's being worked on. MiG-21 received very few updates from Magnitude 3, and same with the Christian Eagle, because those studios are so good they didn't need to do updates, apparently. I'm joking. World War II Assets Pack by Eagle Dynamics. They've added some things there. They've done atmospheric pressure effects on the positioning of operating point with the Black Shark 3. That apparently has been fixed. Combined arms. We've talked about the channel map, the Marianas. They've fixed some things there. They've added some new unique objects. Apparently vehicles were falling through the bridges. That's been repaired. And they've also added in the new runway to Anderson Northwest Field, which is really cool, and also some visual improvements, river, sea entries, 2 steep roads and terrain glitches, yada yada. So all good stuff. The Marianas is a cool map. I kind of like it, and that's why I'm so excited about the South Atlantic one as well. All of the campaigns, or nearly all of the campaigns, have received some sort of adjustment, particularly the World War II ones where the Mosquito needed to be added in either as an AI or whatever else. But really cool stuff. So that pretty much wraps up this week's newsletter. And we are 25 minutes in here, and that is probably long enough. So as you can see, a big patch, really exciting stuff about the Mosquito. Let me know what your thoughts are. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in this week and all the other weeks as well. The fan base is growing. We've just punched through that 6,000 subscribers mark, which is awesome. And yeah, again, thanks for that, and thank you for the likes and subscribes, and of course all the comments, which are very productive and help this channel chug along. We are growing, we are getting bigger, we are getting a little bit better. I'll do my best. I do intend to bring you as much professional content as I can within the constraints of a 40-hour plus working week. It's not easy to do, as many of you will understand. And I do have other videos planned. I've got some stuff in the works. I just haven't had time to pull them together. That will happen over the winter. And of course, don't forget to check out my partners over at the Air Warfare Group. We are bringing you videos fairly regularly on stuff where we can. And we will continue to do that over the winter as we get some more time to train together and bring you some interesting content. So yeah, we'll end it there. Once again, thanks again for all this support, and I will see you next time. This is Prickly Hedgehog out for this week's newsletter. Stay safe out there, everybody. Carry on flying. We'll see you next time. Cheers.